Well, hello Quilt and Bee friends. This is the little binding tutorial I have promised you. And what I want to show you, and we're going to do, because I've got some of it sewn already, all of my binding strips are cut at 2.5 inches. And then they are folded wrong sides together, and I do like to give them a nice sharp press. At the beginning, you can see it already here, I've got a 45-degree angle. And the way I do that is just fold this down at 45 degrees, give it a press, and then I trim that excess off and leave approximately an inch or so as seam allowance. And it's not, super critical that you measure that. You just can eyeball it and make sure. And then what we do is go ahead and stitch down a few stitches almost to that edge, and that purpose is to just keep it in place so that you don't have any pins, poking out and sticking you. And then we leave this section open. You see there's no stitching in here. And then we slide down here, and that's about, 3 inches or so that's left open. That's more than enough. You can leave a little bit more if you want. And then I'm going to stitch all the way down to the corner. And what I want to show you is at the corner, let me move that up a little bit. At the corner, here's my stitching, and then I'm going to come back in here and I'm going to miter that, and I'm going to fold that so that if you can see that there is a little ridge right there, and that's 45 degrees. And these two folded edges match up, touch each other perfectly. And this fold here is just to the inside, maybe a thread's width to the inside. And then I'm going to take this back to the sewing machine and sew this. So let me go ahead and finish doing that, and then I will show you how I finish. So hold on for a second. Okay, I'm back. I've sewn all my corners, and one of the things I forgot to tell you was that this seam allowance is greater than 1/4 of an inch. If you can see that, I don't know if you can, we can zoom in and get that a little bit tighter. So it is, if this little dotted line is 1/4 of an inch and this is a 1/2 an inch or just shy, that is approximately 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. So slightly larger than 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. So do put your regular foot on. Don't use your 1/4 inch foot for this. And then if you see over here, let me move this over so that you can see it. So this is where I started, right here. And this is, I've sewn and I've got almost to the end. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my binding, and I'm going to make a little nip right in there. Just, if you see, there's where I started. There's my seam allowance, just a little bit beyond that on the bottom. And then I'm going to flip up to the top side, and I'm going to go just a little bit beyond there at about that same angle, and then I'm going to open that up, and I am going to go ahead and cut that, okay? And then this is excess. Then this guy is going to slide right in here to this. You want to pay particular attention right here, that is nice and neat and lined up. You want to just hold this in place, go back and put it back underneath your sewing machine foot, and sew from here all the way down to here, and then you will have completed it. No, I did not sew this. I have been doing this technique for years. And you don't need to sew this. This will be fine. So let me go finish doing that, and then I'll come back and show you the rest of it. Alright, so now you can see this is still open, but I've gone ahead and I've finished sewing all of the binding down. So it's all completely done. Now I'm going to flip it over, and I may have to apologize because I did not use a solid fabric. I wasn't thinking. And show you how I go ahead and turn those corners. I will try and put this setup on the sewing machine and sew it, but I suspect when the sewing machine gets moving, I'm going to get vibration, and so that's not going to work. So when we turn this over and we have done these corners, you can feel, and the bulk is over here on this side of the binding. So when I go to put that down like that, I push the bulk to the opposite side. I lay, I'm going to see if I can close in just a little bit. I lay, this is my seam right here. I push this over and lay it just a hair's width beyond that. Then when I sew, I use some sort of stitch, a decorative stitch usually, that goes back and forth. So let me see if I can pause this and set this up on the sewing machine so you can actually see the stitching. Okay, so I don't know if you can see this, but I am using a multi-stitch zigzag right here. I've got it set at 2.1 and 2.2. 2.1 for the stitch length and 2.2 for the stitch. I'm going to put the work underneath the foot and go ahead and start stitching. And please forgive me if this moves. This is the first time I'm doing it with this setup. And so I do spend a bit of a time getting this right where I want it, and if you can see, I have put the fabric right on the fold. Now I'm going to go ahead and stitch right there, and as I go, I am using a tailor's awl to put that fold right where I want it. It's so much more accurate than using your fingers. I am also using the Janome 6700, which has the built-in AccuFeed foot, which when you get ready to do binding makes a huge difference. So as you can see, I'm starting to get ready to turn the corner. I folded it up. I can feel that the bulk is over here on this side, and as I am sewing, I'm going to push this down this way and then fold that over. So let me get just a tad bit closer. And I want to get right into the corner. So about there, 1.5 inches, 2 inches, I fold this down, pull this over, and match it up perfectly. I need to pull that over just a tiny bit. And then I'm going to take it out and show you the other side so that you can see how it works. I sew right into the center, and I'm just take my time. There it is. I go ahead, lift it. I'm using the knee lift, that's why you can't see that. Go ahead and put it down, and then the first 2 stitches right here, because you've got a lot of bulk, sometimes you just need to go slow, stitch that down, and go ahead and stitch that there. Okay, so we're going to pop that out. We're going to turn it over so that you can see it, and you'll see that it stitches perfectly in the corner right on the edge of that binding. And if I wanted to make it less visible, then I would have matched the thread to this binding, and you would have never known this. This is an extremely easy way to bind. This is an extremely durable way to bind, especially if you're giving your quilt or your quilted piece as a gift and you don't know how it's going to be taken care of. This is, I believe, much more durable and stronger than hand stitching. And you do get that nice corner. You have dispersed the bulk on both sides of that miter. It looks good from both sides. And like I said, if you want to make it disappear, match the thread to your binding, and it will. I hope you've enjoyed that. If you do, go ahead and subscribe and like our YouTube channel. Also, look for us on Facebook and Pinterest and Instagram, and of course the World Wide Web at quiltandbee.biz. Have a great day and continue to bind on.